Hello, beautiful people. It's me, your local diva, Anurag. It's the month of June, so I want to wish everyone a happy Pride Month. But as important as it is to celebrate Pride, I think it's equally important to address certain issues that our community has so that we can learn from it and we can improve ourselves. So I asked my friends and followers on Instagram to talk about things that they find wrong in the community or just some things that they dislike about the community. So I've gathered their replies and I'm hoping to address all those issues in this video. Two people replied that they find nothing wrong and they love the community. And while I admire their positivity, there were also a lot of people who had other things to say. Many of the people who replied spoke about one common thing, which was image and appearance. Our community tends to place a lot of value on beauty and aesthetics, which means there are high expectations when it comes to outer appearance. You are expected to meet certain criteria, like you must be good looking, you must behave in a certain manner, you must like some things, you must dislike some things, and people who do not meet these requirements feel excluded and alienated. People in the LGBT community are very judgmental and they will judge you for your looks, for the way you dress, the way you live your life. And all these factors leads to another major issue, that is body shaming. Despite all the activism we do on social media, online dating actually highlights the discrimination we have within our own community, especially when it comes to body and appearance. Like it or not, our community is superficial. So, people who do not fit into the beauty standards are excluded and often discriminated against. And it's no wonder that our community has, low self-esteem and mental health issues. The other issues that people pointed out were misogyny, biphobia, panphobia, and transphobia. There's this notion in the community that just because you're gay, you can act however you want with a woman. I do not have to tell you that it's wrong. Whatever your sexual orientation may be, there are still certain boundaries that you must not cross, and you must still respect women. There's a section of gay men who looks down upon women and who thinks that they're superior. And then there's another section of gay men who are way too comfortable with women to the point that they invade their personal space, thinking that they don't pose a threat just because they're not heterosexuals. That's wrong. Being gay does not give you a free pass to disrespect women. Now, coming to the discrimination against bisexuals and transgender people. There's a reason why we are called LGBT. It's not LG. We are not a mobile manufacturing company. I think most of the discrimination against bisexual people stems from the notion that bisexuals are just straight people masquerading as gays, or they're just straight people who are experimenting and who can go back to the straight life, the normal life, whenever they want to, without having to face the repercussions that that a gay person would. Or maybe people are just jealous and envious of the fact that bisexuals can have fun with two different genders, or that they can, hide their sexual identity without having to lie about it. Now, obviously, transphobia is very prevalent in our community. Trans men are not seen as real men, trans women are not seen as real women. Most of it is just due to miseducation and sheer ignorance. And the negative perception of transgender people in India is also largely due to the exposure to the Hijra community. Now, I don't know why, but gay men are very sexual in nature. I mean, all of us are, most of us are. The thing is, male to male attraction is often very sexual in nature rather than romantic. Their fantasies and their desires mainly revolve around masculinity, which naturally includes the male genitalia. So I think when they encounter a transgender man, the absence of said genitalia makes them feel like they're being lied to, or they feel betrayed. This is again very problematic because number one, a person's genitalia is their own personal business and it has nothing to do with the other person or the other partner. And second, it implies that gay men view the male phallus as indicative of masculinity. They think that it is male genitalia which defines masculinity and what a real man is, and also it is their object of sexual desire. So, yeah. Now, I'm not an expert, so don't take my explanation as the truth. These are just my personal theories based on my observations. But yeah, transphobia is a really big issue in our community, and we need to do better. Like I said earlier, we are all woke activists and public, but online dating really exposes the issues we have within our own community. Now, we all know that in the West, people have this no blacks, no Asians, no fat, no femmes on their profile. Well, the Indian version is no uncles and girlies, or uncles and girlish, stay away. Yeah, I've seen plenty of those type of profiles myself. This short sentence highlights two things: ageism and femphobia. Now, ageism means discriminating against older people. And like I said, our community is very superficial and they're just very focused on beauty and outer appearance. And older people do not fit their desires. Older people are not seen as desirable, but there are two sides to a coin. So on one hand, we have people who discriminate against older people, but on the other end of the spectrum, we have people who fetishizes older men.
Daddies.
Our culture and media has really romanticized the idea of a young and old pairing. People want sugar daddies or just daddies in general. And I know we all love Call Me By Your Name, but that film has a part in romanticizing this kind of relationship. Now, I'm all for love has no age, love has no barriers, things, blah blah blah. I do not mind, age difference in relationships. However, this can often lead to,
pedophilia.
And this can also lead to many older men taking advantage of younger men. Even if the relationship is consensual, the older partner should know what the boundaries are and what can he do or what can't he do. And now coming to femphobia. Where do I even start? So femphobia is basically a dislike for or discriminating against feminine gays or just feminine men in general. Now, the LGBT community is made up of a large number of feminine gay men, which has led to the community to be stereotyped. This stereotype has been the butt of joke in mainstream media for decades and decades. This stereotype is also used to insult and degrade the community. Now, we cannot deny that there are a lot of feminine gay men in the community. The stereotype is true. And being a feminine man isn't wrong in itself. But the thing is, this stereotype has been used as a trope, a joke, an insult for so long that now being a feminine gay man is seen as insulting and degrading and just less. Therefore, we see a lot of statements towards feminine gay men such as,
You are what's wrong with the community. You are the reason why our community is mocked at.
a feminine gay man is a stereotype. But there's nothing wrong with being a stereotype. A stereotype only becomes a problem when you make it problematic. And the heterosexual society has made this feminine gay man stereotype problematic. Now, there is internalized homophobia in our own community. Gone are the days when we loved people for their personalities and for who they really are or were. One of my friends also mentioned bottom shaming and narcissistic tops, which all leads to a whole new discussion about associating personalities with your position in bed. There's this assumption that the tops are generally dominant,
Masculine, mature, the bread earner.
while the bottoms are usually seen as passive,
feminine, sometimes immature, naive, weak.
the one who needs to be taken care of. A top and a bottom relationship is not the same as the patriarchal notion of a man and a woman relationship. Like, why are we applying a heteronormative notion to a homosexual couple? These assumptions about top and bottoms are not only based on heteronormative ideas, but this also leads to bottom shaming, or the bottom being perceived as somehow weak and lesser than the top.
Because bottoms are being compared to women, in this heteronormative idea, in this notion, tops are the men and bottoms are the women. So naturally, bottoms are seen as the weaker or the lesser partner because women, as we all know, in a patriarchal society are unequal to men.
So there's a lot of sexual politics and power struggle between a top and a bottom in a homosexual relationship as well. It's ridiculous, but it's true, and this has sadly led to some tops having superiority complex and some bottoms having inferiority complex. While we are talking about tops and bottoms, let's talk about sex as well. Now, many people seem to have a problem with the fact that the LGBT community, most of them, are obsessed with sex, and they are of the idea that anal sex is real sex, or like anal sex is the only way to have sex. I'm not really sure how to go about this topic because I'm all for sexual liberation and sexual freedom, and many members of the LGBT community perceives sexual freedom as empowering. But again, looking at the dating scene of the community, I can't deny that the idea of dating seems to be limited to hookups and one night stands. So yes, most people in the LGBT community, mostly the G, seems to be very sexually active and promiscuous and are not consciously looking for a romantic relationship, or a monogamous one at that, which really makes it difficult for people looking for romance to find what they're looking for, and it makes them feel disgusted. Now, the idea of sex for gay men, mostly tops, is anal sex. Or many couples are of the notion that the only way to connect sexually is through anal sex. And so they force themselves to do it if they don't want to. Sex is an important part in a relationship, especially if both the partners are sexual in nature. And not having sex may often lead to problems in the relationship. However, this idea of sex for most people is limited to penetration. Sex, at the end of the day, in a healthy romantic relationship, is a way to connect with each other and achieve pleasure through orgasm. And there are many other ways to do that. It does not always involve penetration. Moving on. Next, someone pointed a problem with gay movies. So this person had a problem with the fact that apparently most of the movies are very much focused on the person's sexuality rather than literally anything else. And it's just so in your nose, like the whole plot, the whole story revolves around this person's sexuality, and the movie does not explore anything else. While I do agree with the fact that most of the LGBT movies are like that, however, I do understand why. LGBT representation in media is rare, and it has always been so. There is minimal representation of LGBT characters or relationships in mainstream media. Queer cinema only started blooming in like late 80s or 90s in Hollywood. And if you talk about India, Bollywood, LGBT representation is just a little bit higher than zero. I mean, we only had our first homosexual relationship depicted in Bollywood this year through the movie Shubh Mangal Zyada Savdhan, which actually justifies the statement that it focuses largely on the sexuality. However, we need to understand that these stories surrounding sexuality were and are still largely censored or do not get the opportunity to be told. LGBT representation in cinema, especially in India, has just begun. So I think we need to give time to the makers to and allow them to tell stories like these, stories surrounding sexuality. And then after they have made those films, I think we can move on to make films whose plot is more than the character's sexuality. And because we have been denied cinematic representation for so long, it is only reasonable to celebrate our sexualities on screen when we finally have the chance to do so. One of the last replies that I got was this: I do agree that many organizations and corporations focuses on the LGBT community only during Pride Month when they can profit off of the community, and the rest of the year they rarely show support for the community or advocate for our cause, and our community does get swayed by the marketing. But my explanation for this is similar to the previous one. The LGBT community has largely been ignored by many businesses, and there is lack of representation in the business and marketing departments. It is only recently that businesses have started communication with the LGBT community. So we can't really blame the LGBT community for gravitating towards these businesses and playing right into their capitalist strategy. Because we have been oppressed for so long, we yearn for visibility and representation. So when we are given that, our community tends to eat it up, either without knowing the capitalist marketing or despite the knowledge. So I wouldn't really call that hypocrisy. And at the end of the day, it is up to the individual to support or not support the business who are employing this tactic towards our community. With that, we come to the end. I hope this video has been eye-opening for all of you watching, and I hope that we can all acknowledge these issues as a community and do our own little part, to improve upon them or rectify them. At the end of the day, we are all in this together, and it is up to us to make this community better. We have always claimed to be an open and accepting family, and I think we need to start practicing what we preach. Mental health, body positivity, tolerance, and unity within our community should be as prioritized as is makeup, fashion, fitness, and the newest Lady Gaga album. Once again, happy Pride Month to everyone. Be yourself, love yourself, celebrate yourself, be proud of who you are. Let us make this community and the world a better place to live in. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. See you next time. Bye.